The young human's brain splattered across the cold floor of the Galactic Council chamber as the alien executioner methodically fired his disruptor. The innocent life extinguished in an instant ignited a fury within humanity that had lain dormant for centuries. From the depths of Earth's most ancient warships, long concealed and ready for such an event, a storm of vengeance was unleashed. Captain Logan Carter stood in silence on the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, which hovered in orbit above Earth, his fists clenched, his jaw tight as he watched the horrifying broadcast. The vile Vorian Counselor Xanth had just smugly announced the Council's decision to prevent humanity from traveling beyond its home system. And then, in a brutal act of retribution for a child accused of vandalizing an alien shrine, they executed the boy, his cries echoing in the final moments of his life. "Let this be a lesson to your species," Zanth sneered at the camera, his voice dripping with disdain. "Humanity's defiance will no longer be tolerated." Then, the transmission abruptly cut off. Logan's voice came out in a hoarse whisper, barely audible as the weight of the tragedy sank in. "They killed a child." Commander Hawkins, his eyes filled with disbelief, gripped the railing beside him, his knuckles turning white. "What are your orders, sir?" A cold, burning fury blazed in Logan's eyes as he turned to face his crew. "Signal the fleet, power up the Nova cannons, and plot a course for the Galactic Council's headquarters. We're going to show them what happens when they cross a line they can never return from." This was the moment humanity had long feared, yet secretly prepared for. The day the aliens revealed their true nature. The day they would dare to threaten Earth, betray galactic law, and leave no room for peace. Logan's voice resonated with finality as he delivered the orders that would change everything. Deep within the heart of the Rocky Mountains, the earth trembled as hidden doors in the stone began to part. Massive blast doors groaned open, revealing the deep underground complex. Captain Logan Carter, flanked by his top officers from the Earth Defense Force, descended into the shadows. The long, concrete hallways were dim, lit only by flickering overhead lights, and their boots echoed sharply against the cold, sterile floor as they approached the end of the corridor. There, before them, loomed a massive steel door, several feet thick and heavy. Logan stepped forward and pressed his palm to the biometric scanner. The door hissed open slowly, revealing an enormous underground hangar bathed in shadow. Logan activated the wall switch, and floodlights burst to life, illuminating the vast, hidden space. The officers stared in awe, their eyes widening in disbelief. Before them were rows upon rows of warships, their dark, iridescent hulls gleaming under the floodlights. The ships were angular, sleek, and deadly, unlike anything they had seen before. Logan stood tall, his expression as hard as the steel before them. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the Sigma fleet," Logan's voice rang through the cavern. Built in secret during the early days of human space exploration, and hidden away as a last resort. The Council thought they could keep us confined to Earth, but they had no idea what we were truly capable of. Commander Hawkins stepped forward, his hand hovering over the hull of the closest ship. His brow furrowed as he marveled at the vessel's design. "I thought the Sigma fleet was just a legend." Logan shook his head firmly. "The Sigma fleet is very real. And now, it's time to show the galaxy the true strength of human innovation and will. The Council wants to keep us locked within our home system? Let's see how they like it when we arrive on their doorstep with technology far more advanced than anything they could have imagined." The officers exchanged determined looks, their faces set in grim resolve. As one, they nodded. Logan straightened his uniform and, without a word, walked toward the lead ship, his crew falling in line behind him. "It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity will not bow to anyone," Logan's voice echoed as he walked. "We've been pushed too far and now we push back. Today we bring the fight to the Council. Today they'll learn the true consequences of their betrayal. Today we unleash the Sigma fleet." Light years away, Counselor Xanth reclined lazily on a floating divan in his opulent quarters, an epitome of indulgence. The Ithorian savored a glowing green liquor, its intense flavor burning down his throat like liquid fire. Though the drink could strip the paint off the hull of a starship, to Zanth it was as mild as water. An air chime interrupted his leisure, and he looked up, lifting a hand in a casual gesture as a hollow screen flickered to life. The face of his aide Yk appeared. The normally placid Aaron was flushed a deep violet, his anxious gaze fixed on Zanth. "Counselor," Yk said, his voice strained. "Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of unknown ships entering our system at high velocity." Zanth waved a dismissive hand, his fingers adorned with countless rings. "Send a patrol to deal with them. Probably just some upstart race trying to make a name for themselves." Yk shook his head, the movement jerky, his voice rising with panic. "Sir, the patrol was destroyed the moment they came into weapons range. We didn't even have time to get a visual on what attacked them." Zanth sprang to his feet, his drink spilling over the edge of his goblet in his sudden shock. "What? How is that possible? What kind of weapons do they possess?" Rushing to an ornate control panel, he punched in a code, and the room darkened. A massive holographic map of the Oran system illuminated the air before him, showing a cluster of angry red dots speeding toward the homeworld. Zanth's mind raced as he took in the numbers of ships approaching. By the gods, there are hundreds of them. How could any unknown race have such a fleet? And why haven't we known about them? A cold wave of dread crept through Zanth's veins as a horrifying realization took hold. He turned sharply to face Yk, his voice eerily calm despite the panic boiling inside him. "Yk, tell me everything you can about these ships. I want to know everything. Don't leave anything out." Yk hesitated, his fear evident, but Zanth's commanding gaze left no room for hesitation. If he was right about who these invaders were, then he had just made the gravest mistake of his life, a mistake that could very well lead to the destruction of everything he had ever known. Yk's report was grim. The incoming ships were angular, sleek, and their hulls composed of a mysterious iridescent alloy that defied all scanning attempts. They moved with an elegance and speed that seemed almost supernatural, their formations flawless and precise. But it was their weapons that sent a chill down his spine. Plasma cannons that tore through shields as if they were mere paper. Missiles that struck with uncanny accuracy, faster than the eye could track. And most terrifying of all, a strange energy beam that sliced through ships with brutal precision, tearing them apart with surgical exactness. But the symbol on the prows of the ships, the symbol that every species in the galaxy feared, was the one thing Zanth couldn't ignore. It was the symbol of the Terran Dominion. Humanity had returned, not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors. Conquerors armed with technology beyond the Aeoran's most horrific nightmares. Zanth stumbled back from the holographic display, his heart thundering in his chest, each beat a frantic drum against his ribs. He thought of the child, human, innocent, cut down in the council chambers, slain on his orders. It had been the catalyst, the spark that had ignited the fury of this invasion. He had miscalculated, gravely. He knew that now. They all had. And now, his people would pay for his arrogance. As the Terran fleet moved ever closer, Zanth found himself wondering if there was any force in the galaxy capable of halting the oncoming storm. Deep down, he doubted there was. On the view screen, Zanth's eyes widened in disbelief. His mouth opened and closed like a fish stranded on dry land. He gripped the arms of his command chair, his talons digging into the plastic as his mind raced. Logan, however, was relentless. "Counselor," Logan's voice boomed, firm and unyielding. "I will not ask again. Justice demands it. The Council will lift the ban on human FTL travel. You will acknowledge humanity's right to expand and explore as we see fit. Any further aggression against us will be met with swift and decisive retaliation." Zanth's nostrils flared as he fought to retain some semblance of pride, even as his fear rose to unbearable heights. The Council will never agree to your demands. You are one species among many. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy." He motioned to Samir, who quickly typed a command into his console. The view screen flickered, and Xanth's image shrank into the corner of the display, replaced by a new visual. A battle-worn scene. The wreckage of the Ithorian battlecruiser, its hull twisted and glowing red from the heat of the destruction. But it wasn't the debris that made Xanth's blood run cold. It was the swarming fighters emerging from the Sigma fleet's hangars, shooting toward the remaining Aeoran ships like enraged hornets. The human ships moved with unnatural precision, darting in and out of the defensive fire, their agility unmatched by the Aeoran ships. The moment they opened fire, the Aeoran ships began to fall, their shields buckling under the onslaught. Beams of searing blue-white energy cut through the alien vessels with brutal force, leaving smoldering holes in their once impenetrable hulls. Missiles streaked through space, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake, crashing into their targets with devastating impact. The Aeorans' counterattack was haphazard at best, their fire erratic and weak. They couldn't lock onto the human fighters, their targeting systems utterly confused by the strange, alien alloy of their hulls. Within minutes, a third of the Aeoran fleet had been reduced to debris. The rest were scattered and in disarray, their captains shouting conflicting orders, unable to coordinate their defense. It was a rout. Through it all, the Sigma fleet remained in the background, weapons primed, but silent. They didn't need to engage any further. Their fighters were more than enough to handle the outmatched Ithorian forces. Logan turned back to Zanth, his expression grim, unwavering. "I won't ask again, Counselor. Surrender now, and let this be the end of it." Zanth slumped in his chair, all fight drained from him. He looked around at his bridge crew, and he saw the same realization in their eyes. They had gravely underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. With shaking hands, Xanth reached out and severed the transmission. The view screen went black. Logan turned to Commander Hawkins, his eyes hard with resolve. "Signal the fleet. All ships, weapons at the ready. Give them one last chance to comply." Hawkins nodded, sending the order through the comm system. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, the tension palpable, thick enough to cut through the air with a blade. Every officer stared at the tactical display, eyes fixed on the red and blue icons representing the two fleets. And then, slowly, the red icons began to move. One by one, the remaining Ithorian ships powered down their weapons and their engines. They were surrendering. A cheer erupted from the human crew, fists pumping into the air, backs slapped in exuberant celebration. They had done it. They had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees. But Logan remained still, his gaze fixed on the display, his face a stone mask. He didn't join in the celebration. He knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not forget this humiliation easily. There would be repercussions, political, military, and beyond. The road ahead would be long, fraught with challenges, conflict, and sacrifices. But Logan also knew that today marked a turning point. Humanity had proven it could stand up to the alien powers that sought to control them, and, more importantly, it had proven that they could defeat them. Today, humanity had taken its first step toward a future of its own making. A future where they would no longer live in the shadows of the Council, where their destiny was in their own hands. And woe to anyone who dared to stand in their way. Xanth's eyes darted over the readouts, the numbers and symbols blurring into a storm of impending doom. The human ships had vanished from the screens, as though they had never been there at all. But Xanth knew better. They were out there, somewhere, silent, waiting. Invisible predators, poised to strike at any moment. Slamming a webbed fist onto the console, Xanth barked orders in the guttural Ithorian language. Surround them, trap them, and destroy them. The Aeoran fleet began to move, their ponderous capital ships straining to match the speed of their nimble adversaries. They spread out in an attempt to form a vast sphere around the Terran Sigma fleet, weapons bristling as they closed in, hoping to entrap the invaders. On the Indomitable's bridge, Logan leaned back in his command chair, a small smile tugging at his lips as he watched the Aeorans' futile attempts to form a perimeter. Beside him, Samir frowned, studying the display. "They're trying to box us in, cut off our escape routes. Should I order the fleet to pull back?" Logan shook his head, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "No. Let them think they're in control. We're going to show them what humanity is really capable of." He leaned forward, his voice resolute as he keyed the comm system. "All ships, initiate Ghost Protocol." A chorus of acknowledgements filled the air as the fleet responded in unison. On the view screen, the Sigma fleet rippled, distorting as it began to vanish, slipping into the void like shadows, invisible once again. The ships flickered, their contours blurring, and then they vanished entirely as the advanced stealth field activated. In mere seconds, the human vessels were gone, their presence undetectable to both visual sensors and the most sophisticated scans. Like wraiths, they haunted the empty void, invisible to their would-be captors. Zanth gaped in disbelief, his eyes darting across the readouts, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. His crew erupted into a frenzy of panicked shouts, warning klaxons blaring as alarms screamed through the bridge. The human fleet had disappeared, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. It was unthinkable. "This can't be," Zanth roared, his voice cracking with disbelief. But his words were abruptly silenced as the flagship was struck by a monstrous impact. Sparks erupted from shattered consoles, and the deck beneath his feet buckled, sending him sprawling as the ship convulsed violently. Around him, the rest of the Aeoran armada was suffering a similar fate. Massive explosions lit the void as the first salvo from the hidden Sigma fleet tore into their rank. The alien shields flared bright, but they crumpled like paper under the onslaught, their hulls bending and folding in the wake of the human weapon's brutal impact. Xanth staggered to the viewport of the flagship, his heart hammering in his chest as he watched in terror. His fleet was being systematically dismantled, each ship falling apart under the human assault, struck with chilling precision. On the Indomitable, Logan stood silently at the helm, watching the carnage unfold on the screen. He felt a grim satisfaction as he witnessed the one-sided slaughter. Let the aliens feel the fear and helplessness they had inflicted on others for so long. Let them reap the consequences of their arrogance and cruelty. "Ceasefire," Logan ordered, his voice calm but carrying an edge of finality. Just like that, the barrage ceased. The once proud Aeoran fleet lay shattered in the void, its remaining ships drifting helplessly. Smoldering wrecks, once mighty, now little more than charred husks. Logan turned his attention to Xanth's face on the viewscreen, his eyes locking onto the alien counselors with unwavering intensity. "Look at your fleet now, Counselor," Logan's voice rang out, every word heavy with purpose. "See how it has been humbled. Your vaunted power, nothing more than a brittle illusion, just as fragile as the life of that innocent child you so callously extinguished." He leaned in, his face filling the screen, his eyes piercing through the trembling Ithorian. "Now I hold the fate of your entire species in my hands. I want you to feel that fear, Zanth. I want you to understand, deep in your bones, how close you are to total annihilation. How easy it would be for me to wipe you from existence with a single command." A dark smile twisted Logan's lips, cold and merciless. "But I won't. Not yet. I spare you now, for one reason only: you will be the messenger." He raised a hand in mock benediction. "You will return to your council and tell them exactly what transpired here today. Make them understand that the age of their dominion is finished. Humanity will no longer bow to their oppression. We will claim our rightful place among the stars, and we will brook no opposition. Those who stand against us will be crushed beneath our will and scattered to the wind." Logan's smile deepened, his voice a venomous whisper. "Go now, Zanth. Run back to your masters, tail between your legs, and pray that when we meet again, I show you mercy. For the sake of your entire race, I hope I do. With that, the transmission abruptly cut off, leaving Zanth staring at a blank screen. The taste of ashes lingered in his mouth, his throat dry. The galaxy had irrevocably shifted today, and Zanth had been the catalyst for that change. Logan terminated the transmission with a sharp gesture, his finger pressing down decisively. The Ithorian's face disappeared from the viewscreen, leaving nothing but static in its wake. Turning to his crew, Logan's expression hardened. This is only the beginning. The Council won't let this humiliation slide. They will gather their forces, and they will come after us with everything they have. Samir, one of Logan's trusted officers, quickly spoke up, his fingers flying over his console. Captain, if the Council unites the other species against us, even with our technological advantage, we could be outmatched. They may not have our weapons, but they have the numbers. Logan nodded thoughtfully, his tactical mind already working on a plan. Then we level the playing field, he said, his voice firm. Helm, plot a course for the Corax Nebula. Maximum burn. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but without hesitation, they sprang into action. Their hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, and the Indomitable's engines roared to life. The deck vibrated beneath their feet as the fleet jumped into hyperspace, the stars outside streaking by in a blur. Gathering his officers in the briefing room, Logan stood before a holographic map, the eerie blue light casting shadows across their faces. The Corax Nebula is Vorian territory, Logan began, his voice low and intense. The Vorians were once a powerful warrior culture, long before the Council subjugated them centuries ago. They've been toiling as slaves ever since. But our intel suggests they're primed for an uprising. An alliance with them could give us the manpower we need to match the Council's forces. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Corax Nebula, the swirling purple and blue clouds painting the viewscreen with vivid color. Sensors pinged, indicating the presence of Vorian mining outposts. These outposts, however, were heavily guarded by Council overseers. Logan's lips curled into a predatory smile. All ships disengage. Cloak. The human fleet shimmered into existence, its sudden appearance sending the overseers into a frenzy. Within minutes, the Council ships began to retreat, their engines flaring brightly as they fled. The overseers scattered, leaving the Vorian workers, bewildered but filled with hope, staring up at the human vessels. Logan opened a channel to the largest outpost, and a weathered Vorian face appeared on the screen, battle scars marking his dark green scales. The alien regarded Logan with suspicion. "I am Captain Logan Carter of Earth," Logan announced. "We are here to offer you a chance to break your chains and take vengeance on your oppressors." The Vorian narrowed his eyes, his body tense. "And why should we trust you, human? Your species is new to the galaxy. What could you possibly offer us?" Logan responded by transmitting the footage of the confrontation with Zanth, the decisive defeat of the Aoran fleet. The Vorian leader watched, his eyes widening as the shocking footage played, his disbelief shifting to a dangerous, fiery hunger. When the transmission ended, the Vorian leader looked at Logan with newfound respect. "You have shown your strength, Earther. What do you want from us?" Logan leaned forward, his voice intense and unyielding. "I propose an alliance. Fight with us. Together, we will shatter the Council's grip on this galaxy. Not just for humanity, but for all those they have enslaved." The Vorian laughed, a harsh, guttural sound filled with bloodlust. "You have a deal, human. The Vorians will stand with you. Together, we will make the Council taste terror like never before." As the screen went dark, Logan turned to his crew, a fire burning in his eyes. The game pieces were finally in motion. "Prepare the fleet," Logan's voice cut through the tense air. "It's time we bring the fight to the Council's doorstep." The combined human and Vorian fleets erupted from hyperspace at the far edge of the Galactic Council's home system, a tightly packed cluster of heavily populated planets and massive orbital structures. As soon as they arrived, alarm klaxons blared across the system, heralding the activation of the Council's formidable defense network. The ships of the Council began to assemble, forming an impenetrable wall of warships around their central world, the heart of their empire. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Logan watched the developing situation with a focused gaze. "They've pulled their fleets from all corners of the galaxy," he muttered under his breath. "The core of their military strength is here." Samir, standing at his console, furrowed his brow as he observed the tactical display. "Even with the Vorian numbers, Captain, we're still outgunned in terms of firepower." Logan nodded grimly. "Which is why we won't engage them head-on." His voice turned tactical. "We need to be strategic." He pressed a button on his console and spoke into the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, commence Phase 1. Without hesitation, the human and Vorian ships veered off course, moving not toward the waiting Council armada but in a wide arc around the system's outer edge. Their target, a colossal space station bristling with sensor arrays and communication equipment, a nerve center for the Council's surveillance and communication. "That's their primary system-wide comms and surveillance nexus," Logan explained to his crew. "We destroy that and we cut off their eyes and ears. The chaos will disrupt their coordination." As they neared the station, the Council warships assigned to guard it sprang into action, accelerating to intercept. But just as they neared firing range, the human ships seemed to multiply, each vessel fracturing into dozens of mirror images. The Council ships hesitated, confused as their sensors flooded with multiple false returns. Before they could respond, it was already too late. The real human ships, still cloaked by the decoys, were upon them. The void around the station erupted into chaos as the battle began in earnest. The Council warships fought valiantly, but they were hopelessly outclassed by the humans' advanced technology and the Vorians' unrelenting ferocity. Within minutes, the station's defenses were overwhelmed. A series of human quantum torpedoes struck in rapid succession, reducing the massive station to an expanding cloud of wreckage. Across the system, the Council's communications were severed, and their fleet-wide data network dissolved into static and white noise. In the midst of the confusion, the human and Vorian ships pressed their advantage, picking off strategic targets. Shipyards, weapon emplacements, resupply points, all fell before them with surgical precision. Logan observed the unfolding carnage, his expression hardening as the Council's tightly coordinated defense began to unravel. "Phase 1 complete," Logan said after a long moment, his voice steady. "Commence Phase 2. The human and Vorian fleets regrouped, now no longer avoiding the Council armada, but heading straight for it. Their weapons hummed, fully powered and ready to deliver death. Logan opened a channel to the Council flagship. "This is Captain Logan Carter of the Earth Sigma Fleet. Your communications are down, your defenses are failing, and your fleet is in disarray. Surrender now, and we will spare your lives." A long silence followed. Then, the image of Counselor Xanth appeared on the screen, his face twisted with hatred and defiance. "We will never surrender to you, human filth. We will fight until the last ship, the last warrior, the last breath." Logan's eyes were cold as ice as he stared at Zanth. "So be it," he responded flatly. With a swift motion, Logan cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Signal all ships. No mercy. Let's finish this." The human and Vorian fleets surged forward, weapons blazing, as the Council ships scrambled to defend their positions. The battle was a brutal clash of firepower. Explosions and energy beams lit up the void, a violent kaleidoscope of destruction. Logan gripped the arms of his chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a barrage of impacts, its shields flaring as they absorbed the oncoming assault. On the view screen, a Council destroyer erupted in a ball of plasma as a dreadnought's siege cannon found its mark. A Vorian cruiser, trailing flames and debris, rammed a Council frigate, both ships disintegrating in a flash of mutual annihilation. "Concentrate fire on their command ships," Logan barked, his voice unwavering. "We cut off the head and the body will fall. The human fleet adjusted its formation, with the Indomitable at the forefront, leading the charge toward the Council's flagship. The alien ships positioned themselves to protect their leaders, firing relentlessly to prevent the human ships from breaking through. The Council battleship, battered and scorched, loomed ahead of them. Its graviton cannons pummeled the Indomitable's shields, sparks flying from consoles across the bridge as explosions rocked the ship. Logan gritted his teeth, his jaw clenched tight. Divert power to forward shields and weapons, he commanded through the chaos. Samir, find me a weak point. Samir's hands danced across his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. There, he shouted. A fluctuation in their AR shield grid, coordinates Gamma 615. With a sharp turn, the Indomitable swung to starboard, its prow aimed directly at the Council battleship's vulnerable stern. A heartbeat later, the Indomitable's guns erupted with devastating force, a searing beam of concentrated energy slicing through space to impact the weak spot in the alien ship's defenses. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Council battleship buckled, its hull bulging outward as cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Secondary explosions detonated within its core, sending shock waves rippling through the vessel. With a final, deafening roar, the ship shattered, torn apart from within by a catastrophic reactor breach. Through the expanding debris field, Logan glimpsed the Council flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons, a symbol of the Council's arrogance. His eyes narrowed, his voice a low growl. All ships, converge on the flagship. It's time to cut the head off the snake. The human and Vorian ships collided with the remaining Council armada, weapons tearing through the enemy ship. Energy beams sliced through hulls, and missiles twisted through the void, detonating with destructive force. The Council's resistance was growing weaker with each passing moment. At the center of the chaos, the Indomitable and Zanth's flagship locked in a fierce struggle, energy lances crackling back and forth, each vessel enduring devastating hit. On the Indomitable's bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks. Logan gripped his chair tightly, his face set in a grim mask as the deck shuddered beneath him. The Indomitable's guns roared in response, a relentless barrage hammering into the Council flagship's stern, breaking through its defenses. The enemy ship's shields flared, flickered, and then collapsed under the relentless barrage. Flame erupted from its engine section as the Indomitable's weapons found their mark. The flagship lurched out of control, trailing a cloud of debris and plasma. But it was already too late. The Council dreadnought fired its main gun, a massive particle beam cannon, unleashing a torrent of energy that slammed into the Indomitable's bow. For a brief moment, the human ship's shields flared in a brilliant display before they were torn apart. The beam tore through decks and vaporized bulkheads, leaving total destruction in its wake. The bridge descended into chaos. Panels detonated with deafening bangs, spewing flames and shrapnel across the room. Crew members were flung from their stations as the deck bucked violently beneath them. Logan, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, dragged himself upright, vision blurry from the shock. Damage reports poured in, each one worse than the last. Hull breaches, weapons offline, engines crippled. The dreadnought didn't relent, continuing its assault with salvo after punishing salvo. Logan watched helplessly as his ship groaned under the barrage, his vengeance slipping further away with each passing second. Then, a miracle. A squadron of Vorian cruisers, seeing the Indomitable's desperate plight, broke formation and charged toward the dreadnought, guns blazing. Caught off guard and already reeling from its fight with the Indomitable, the Council ship's shields crumbled under the Vorian ship's concentrated fire. The Vorian vessels swarmed over the dreadnought like enraged wasps, their explosions rocking the alien ship as they zeroed in on its engines and weapons with deadly precision. In mere minutes, the once unstoppable dreadnought was reduced to a shattered hulk, floating lifelessly in the void. A ragged cheer erupted on the Indomitable's bridge. Logan sagged back into his chair, exhausted and bloodied, but alive. He surveyed the battle space, his gaze settling on the Council fleet, now thrown into disarray. The destruction of their flagship and dreadnought had left them reeling, and they were falling back in confusion. "Ceasefire," Logan ordered, his voice weary but steady. "Commence rescue and recovery operations, and someone bring me a damage assessment." He closed his eyes for a brief moment. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over." In the aftermath of the colossal clash, the Indomitable drifted in the cold depths of space, her hull scarred by energy blasts and great rents torn in her armored sides. Damage control teams scrambled through the ship's corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting power through shattered conduit. On the bridge, Logan conferred with his chief engineer, reviewing the damage reports on a flickering display. "Route all available power to the repair drones," Logan ordered, his voice cutting through the haze of chaos. "Prioritize hull integrity and engine function. We need to be operational as soon as possible." As the crew worked tirelessly to restore the mighty warship, the rest of the fleet limped into view, many ships bearing the scars of the brutal engagement. Vorian cruisers, their angular hulls painted with vibrant war paint, docked with the Indomitable, disgorging boisterous warriors onto the decks. In the main hangar, a raucous celebration erupted as the Vorians toasted their victory, clashing their weapons together and downing great flagons of shimmering, potent liquor. Human crew members, caught up in the infectious spirit, joined in the revelry, trading war stories and slapping each other on the back with their fierce allies. But as the celebrations reached their peak, urgent communications began flooding the Indomitable's comm channels. Logan's face darkened as he called his senior staff into the briefing room. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy," Logan said, his voice tight. "With the Council's central fleet destroyed and their communications in shambles, uprisings are erupting on dozens of worlds. Long-oppressed species are rising against their Council masters." Samir, his eyes alight with determination, leaned forward. "This is the moment we've been waiting for, Captain. The Council is vulnerable. If we strike now, hard and fast, we could end their tyranny once and for all." Logan's mind raced as he considered the possibilities. He turned to the Vorian commander, a battle-hardened warrior with a jagged scar cutting across his face. "What do you say, Commander Trax? Your people have suffered under the Council's yoke for centuries. Will you fight with us in this final push?" Trax bared his teeth in a fierce grin, his eyes burning with the fire of vengeance. "The Vorians are with you, human. Our blades thirst for Council blood. Give the word, and we will unleash the full fury of our wrath." Logan stood, his eyes hard as flint. "Then it's settled. We'll launch a coordinated assault on the Council's key strongholds. We'll strike them from all sides and sever the head of the snake. It's time to end this once and for all." As the fleet leaders departed to brief their crews and prepare for the coming offensive, Logan received an urgent hail on his personal comm. He frowned as he stepped into a private alcove to take the call. The face that appeared was haggard, drawn with fear and exhaustion. It was one of Logan's covert operatives deep in Council space. "Captain," the operative whispered urgently, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid of being overheard. "I have urgent news. Counselor Xanth, he's alive. He escaped the destruction of his flagship." Logan's blood ran cold. "What? How?" "I don't know," the operative replied, his voice trembling. "But he's rallying the remnants of the Council's forces. He's preparing for a counterattack. And Captain, there's more." The operative paused, licking his lips in dread. "Zanth has a weapon. Some kind of doomsday device. They say it has the power to destroy entire star systems. He's threatening to use it if the Council's rule is truly broken." Logan's fist clenched, his knuckles white as the gravity of the situation sank in. "Understood," he said, his voice like gravel. "Keep me informed." As the fleet entered hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light, Logan stared out the viewport, his jaw clenched. They were headed for a remote, heavily fortified Council base where Zanth was reportedly holed up with his apocalyptic weapon. It was a mission fraught with danger, a desperate race against annihilation. But as Logan looked around at the faces of his crew, hardened and determined, he felt a flicker of hope amidst the dread. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear. If anyone could pull this off, it was them. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Council base's sensor range. Logan turned to his tactical officer. "Initiate full stealth protocols," he ordered. Not so much as a whisper, understood? The mighty ship slipped into the shadow of an orbiting moon, its sensor-absorbing coating rendering it nearly invisible. Logan gathered his strike team in the armory, each member hand-picked for their skill and courage. The air in the armory was thick with electric tension, each member of Logan's strike team checking their weapons and armor. The anticipation hung heavy, coiled tight like a spring ready to explode. Logan met each of their eyes in turn, his gaze unwavering and firm. "You all know the stakes," he said quietly, his voice low but powerful. "If we fail, if Zanth activates that weapon, there's no coming back from that." He placed a hand on the shoulder of the nearest soldier, his grip firm and resolute. "But we will not fail. We can't. The fate of the galaxy rests on our shoulders." The team nodded as one, their faces etched with iron resolve. They understood the risks, understood the odds stacked against them, but their duty was clear. They were the last line of defense, and they would not falter. As the Indomitable glided silently toward the looming Council base, Logan felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere within that sprawling complex of steel and shadows, Zanth was waiting, his finger hovering over the trigger that could end it all. This would be a battle like no other, a desperate fight in the heart of enemy territory. But as Logan checked the charge on his plasma rifle, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Council had underestimated humanity one last time. One way or another, this would end today. The Indomitable crept through the void like a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge, Logan stood rigid, his eyes locked on the viewscreen, which displayed the Council base, growing larger by the second. "Prepare for breach," Logan commanded, his voice low and steady. His strike team, the finest soldiers humanity had to offer, checked their weapons one final time. Faces hardened, every man and woman focused on the mission ahead. As they neared the base, the enemy's defenses sprang to life, energy cannons and missile batteries swiveling to target them. But the Indomitable was prepared, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to the enemy's sensors. "Fire the EMP," Logan ordered. A pulse of blue-white energy shot from the Indomitable's prow, flooding the base in a cascading wave of power. The enemy's defenses fell silent in an instant, their power systems fried beyond repair. "Go, go, go!" Logan roared, leading the charge as the strike team surged forward, breaching pods slamming into the base's hull. The outer bulkheads split apart like soft metal under a plasma torch, spilling the team into the corridors beyond. Alarms blared, and emergency lights flickered as the Council's elite guards scrambled to respond. Plasma fire crisscrossed the narrow halls as the two forces collided, the air thick with the stench of ozone and scorched flesh. Logan moved like a whirlwind, his rifle spitting blue death with deadly precision as he advanced. His team pressed forward, cutting down anyone who stood in their way, leaving a trail of bodies behind them. The Council guards were relentless, pouring into the corridors like an endless tide. For every soldier that fell, two more seemed to take their place, forcing the team to fight for every inch of ground. Logan gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, the heat singeing his hair. He dropped to one knee, snapping off 3 shots in quick succession that sent a guard tumbling to the floor, a smoking hole in his chest. All around him, the team fought with savage determination, each struggle pushing them further into the heart of the base. He saw Sergeant Hawkins locked in a grapple with a hulking alien, both rolling across the floor in a vicious tangle of limbs. Private Xiong fell, clutching the ruined remains of her leg, her screams drowned out by the sounds of battle. Yet, despite the chaos, they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to stop now. After what felt like an eternity of blood and fire, they reached the heart of the base. The doors to the central command center, massive and imposing, loomed before them. Logan didn't hesitate. He slapped a breaching charge onto the unyielding metal and stepped back, his finger hovering over the detonator. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into smoke and thunder as the charge exploded, ripping the doors from their frame. Logan was moving before the echoes of the blast faded, charging into the room with his rifle raised. And there, standing amidst a bank of consoles and flickering holographic displays, was Counselor Xanth. His cruel smile twisted as he saw Logan, his hand hovering over a control panel. "You're too late, human," Xanth gloated, his voice dripping with malice. "With a single command, I can activate the Doomsday device and wipe your precious." Logan leveled his rifle at the counselor, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Xanth. Step away from the control panel." But Xanth just laughed, a manic gleam dancing in his eyes. "You think you've won? You think your little rebellion means anything? The Council's power is absolute, and I will see it restored, even if I have to destroy 1,000 worlds to do it." His hand slammed down on the console, but nothing happened. No alarms, no flashing lights, just eerie silence. Xanth's eyes widened in shock and disbelief as he repeatedly jabbed at the controls, growing more frantic with each failed attempt. He spun to face Logan, rage contorting his features. Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Did you really think we'd come here without a plan?" he asked softly. "While you were focused on us, our operatives were hacking your systems, disabling your weapon. It's over, Zanth. You've lost." For a long moment, Zanth just stood there, his mouth working soundlessly as the weight of his failure sank in. Then, with a primal scream of fury, he lunged at Logan, a hidden blade flashing from his sleeve. Logan met him head-on, blocking the strike with his rifle. The two leaders collided in a frenzy of motion, each blow landing with brutal precision. They crashed into consoles, sparks flying as the delicate equipment shattered beneath them. Logan felt the sharp bite of Xanth's blade, a line of fire across his ribs. But he pushed through the pain, retaliating with a vicious elbow to the alien's throat. Xanth staggered back, gasping for breath, and Logan pressed his advantage. A swift kick to the knee, followed by a hammer blow to the temple, and Xanth crumpled to the floor, his blade skittering away. Logan stood over the fallen counselor, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. Xanth glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. "Finish it, then," he spat, his words thick with blood. "Take your revenge." For a long moment, Logan just stared at him, his rifle unwavering. The temptation was there, the burning desire to end it all, to bring down the Council with a single, justified pull of the trigger. But just as his finger tightened on the trigger, a flicker of movement caught Logan's eye. He turned quickly, and what he saw sent a jolt of cold dread through his body, freezing his veins in an instant. The Doomsday device's power core, a pulsating orb of dark energy, was fluctuating violently. Arcs of electricity crackled across its surface, and warning lights flashed an urgent red, casting an eerie glow in the dim room. The low, ominous hum of rising charge filled the air, resonating with the undeniable sound of imminent disaster. Logan's heart skipped a beat as his mind raced. He understood instantly what had gone wrong. In the heat of the battle, a stray shot or errant blow must have compromised the containment field. The core was destabilizing rapidly, its energy gathering like a storm about to break. The catastrophic release would be unavoidable, and there was no time left. His mind raced for a solution, but even as the thought flickered, he already knew. There was no escape, no way to repair the damage. Only one path remained, one last, desperate gamble. He turned to his strike team, the survivors of their brutal advance. They were battered, bloodied, but they remained unbroken, still standing strong. "Get back to the ship," Logan ordered, his voice rough with the weight of the moment. All of you, get as far away from here as you can. But Sergeant Hawkins stepped forward, his expression full of concern. What about you, sir? He asked, his voice tight. Logan met his gaze, a sad smile tugging at the corners of his lips. I'll stay behind, he said quietly. I'll try to contain the blast, buy you as much time as I can. Understanding hit Hawkins like a blow to the chest. A flash of anguish crossed his face, and he opened his mouth to protest, but Logan cut him off with a raised hand. That's an order, Hawkins. Get our people out. It's the only way. The two men locked eyes for a long, painful moment, a lifetime of shared experiences passing between them in silence. Then, slowly, Hawkins nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. It's been an honor, sir, he said softly, snapping a crisp salute. Logan returned the salute, his heart heavy with pride and sorrow. The honor was mine. One by one, the remaining members of the strike team filed out, each pausing for a brief moment to offer their own goodbyes. A clasp of the hand, a murmured word of thanks, their faces grim but resolute. Logan watched them go, pride and grief warring in his chest. Finally, he was alone, the command center now silent, save for the unsettling hum of the core. He turned to face it, squaring his shoulders as fear began to rise within him. He thought of Earth, the rolling green hills of his childhood home, the laughter of friends, and the warmth of family. He thought of his crew, brave men and women who had followed him into battle, trusted him with their lives. And then, his thoughts turned to the small, innocent child, the one whose death had set all this in motion, the catalyst for everything. This is for you, kid, he whispered, his voice barely audible. For all of you. He took one final step forward, bracing himself against the impending storm. The world around him dissolved into blinding light and deafening thunder. And Captain Logan Carter knew no more. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this tale and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your time.